Going on, Maschine Masters family? My name is MGTheFuture. Today I got another exclusive tutorial for you guys. The new Tim Kelley kit is about to come out soon, called Oceans 11. So I went through this pack, found a couple of samples, and I was trying to figure out something pretty cool I can teach you guys based on these particular samples. And I was thinking it'd be really dope to do another lo-fi tutorial that's a little bit more focused on the type of lo-fi I've been hearing lately on YouTube and Bandcamp and SoundCloud. It's like a hip-hop resurgence coming out, but the techniques that these particular kids are doing from the other countries are a little bit different. It's not just soul sampling and boom bap. They have a very particular workflow, and a lot of the tools of the trade, of course, is Ableton Live, although you can do this in any program for the most part. A lot of these dudes have SP404SX, although I would probably recommend a SP303 if you can find it in good condition and you don't mind the extra hassle of loading samples by recording them live. And probably a SP1200 if you can get it. And I know that's asking for a lot. So, of course, I'm always thinking outside the box, trying to figure out how we can get that sound inside of the box. So that's what I'm going to show you. So for now, the Tim Kelley kit, we got some construction kits. And there's quite a few samples. I'm gonna go through a couple of them so you get an idea of it. When I heard this one, I knew right away I was going to do something lo-fi for it because of the guitar. And a lot of lo-fi beats, a lot of the joints that are some of the best I've heard are based around acoustic guitars and also EPs. So what I went and did was take that sample for my intro, and then I chopped it up. The chops are real simple. I'm using the Ableton slice and through mode. Of course, it's in the latest version of Ableton Live. We get a lot of comments about that. How come your simpler doesn't look like this? If you bought Ableton Live 9, this is part of a free upgrade. So I'm going to try it, see if I could trigger this a little bit. So that's the sample. The drums are just simpler. This is just a generic hip-hop kits, and I have them layered. I always, as of lately, I get a real good vinyl sample or break, and I chop that up to make my kick, my hat, and my snare. And then I have a go-to drum kit, which is a little bit more tuned and processed with the SP1200 and the Roland MV, and I use that to punch it from under. And then that's kind of like parallel compression a little bit because you have two different kicks, two different snares, but I make sure they're in the same family so that you can blend them pretty good. So that's the main kit. With a lot of lo-fi joints, you want to make sure you have like a real good snappy snare. And then my secondary kit is this one. So I'm going to layer them up like that. You can pick any tone you want. Just make sure you blend and filter them so everything punches through and is pretty clean. And I want to show you the sequence I have and show you a few tips based on the sequence after I'm done, as far as how the swing goes and how the processing of making it quote-unquote lo-fi. So that's pretty cool, pretty chill. The sample is still kind of clean though, so it doesn't quite take you to that atmosphere you need. So I'm going to show you how to do that first. So let's go ahead and solo this. And the first thing you're going to want, in my example, is a reverb. Hall reverbs will do fine. Special effects reverbs that have like really extreme settings, you just want to make sure you back off the decay time a little bit, or time your decay time with the length of the bar, to kind of give it this atmosphere. So with this particular reverb, you hear like this, it creates this additional sound that sounds like a bell, like dun 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 ding. So once I heard that frequency or that resonance, I knew I was going to use this particular preset and modify it. Now the next thing, after you have your filter or your reverb good and you have that texture you like, then you want to filter it out. So I'm using the Good Hertz stuff. This is called Tilt. It's a real simple plugin. You don't necessarily have to use Tilt. You could probably use any EQ you want, the Pultex, linear phase EQs, anything you want. But what's cool about Tilt is that it allows you to filter pretty simple, low pass and high pass, and that's its only function. And then the tilt function is like these other tilt EQs that Sound Toys makes, the Plugin Alliance makes. They all have like this dynamic or tilt EQ. Basically, you narrow down the frequency and you push the image or push the spectrum towards that end. So if you narrow it down on highs and you tilt towards high, it'll become brighter and vice versa. So with the filter and the reverb, this is what it sounds like. And you can push this filter really hard, which is dope. It's really clean sounding. As far as low pass, I suggest using between 1K and 6K. So now we're in the mood. We got the reverb, we got the filter, and what you're gonna wanna do, I got two things going on. I got EQ, post EQ. So basically, once I get the texture I like, I'm shaping the EQ up to make sure the sample or the guitar fits better in with the drums. So I did a low pass here around 133 and I bumped a little high. And you can use any EQ for that, nothing special. And then lastly, the tape effect. There's plenty of tape plugins out there. You got the slates, you got the waves, you got color tone, you got nebula, you got all kinds of tape emulations, and they all work perfectly. But a lot of these lo-fi guys, they print to cassette, so I'm using a cassette tape plugin emulation. It does do regular tape as well, but its specialty is cassette. It has a mode for cassette, and of course the other two lo-fi tape reels. So once you turn this on, basically it's a tape plugin is going to give you a little bit of wobble. And what you want to do is, if you don't have this plugin, you could probably automate a LFO to kind of get that pitch bend and wobble going, or you could possibly use a sample of a tape already wobbling and blend it in with your sample on another track to kind of give that illusion that is being played. So now we have that tape sound where it feels like the sample is stretching and pulling, and that's exactly what you want. That helps with your groove tremendously. Speaking of groove, we're gonna get into the drums. Same exact story, except for this is a little bit simpler. Already did the parallel compression by doubling my kick, my hat, and my snare, so you can see there's just different levels or different volume levels for each one. And since this is lo-fi and is meant to be real simple and straight to the point, I didn't bust it out to audio tracks. So I'm not mixing these drums or adding individual EQs and stuff because I'm going to mess it up intentionally or make it low. In order to do that, same story. I'm going to use the Wolf compressor, which is specifically a SP303 vinyl simulation compressor emulation, if I said that correctly. So basically it gives you the vibe of the SP303 without having it. Is not a replacement, but it's a close second. And with that, you also have a lo-fi mode on it, and you have a wow mode. Lo-fi is basically the digital artifacts at 100% to make it sound like it's coming through a machine. In fact, you could probably hear it now playing in the background now that it's enabled. Like if I stop it, it'll stop. So that's lo-fi, and wow is, again, it's a kind of like it's an artifact of tape, but it's just this drift. Like with a lot of real analog hardware synthesizers, the reason why our software VSTs don't sound so real is because they don't have any drift. This kind of stuff putting on your VSTs is really dope. but for this case, this is on the drums. So it's a little bit more harsh. That's real bright and clean. It's a little bit harsh. And then to follow that up, I tilt shifted this, and I'm taking advantage of the filter, a high pass, or low pass I should say, and I'm cutting it down to 2.15K. Like I said, this filter is really clean. Like, it's up there with the Sonox EQ and UAD as far as filters go. Now both of them together. So we have that groove, we have the ambiance, the static, the noise, the drift, everything you need to be qualified for lo-fi. And lastly, the master channel. I'm doing the same thing. I'm putting a compressor on it to glue both of those two elements together on my master channel. Or if you're in a different situation where you got vocals and stuff, you can just bust them out and put them in the same group and then put this effect on the group instead of your master. This is to glue it together. I have a limiter, which is the Faraday limiter, just -1. Nothing fancy going on here, although this particular limiter will give you like an analog tone to it. And most importantly, more tape. You can never have enough tape. I had this tape peaking, so it's going to change the highs a little bit. It's going to kind of warm up the mids. And I have the tape set to 15 IPS, so that's as low fidelity as this particular plugin goes. The other one by Good Hertz goes down to 7.5, so it goes half of this if you wanted to use that instead. So when you distort it, it gets real ugly, but you don't want that crunch, so you just back off. So you get it where you want it. So now once you have all that and you have that tone and texture that you like, you want to add the effects. So that's going to be a lot of automation. So your reverb automation, your beat repeat automation. If you have any plugins that'll let you do vinyl warps or, like pitch downs, that kind of automation. A lot of these guys, instead of arranging it like a trap song when you have these different drums come in and out and hi-hats and triplets and stuff, they just use these effects every 2 bars or every 4 bars or towards the end of a particular section to let you know, or to let the rapper know, there's a bridge or a hook coming. So you want to automate that. This is not a full sequence, but I did automate it a little bit. And what I ended up doing is I have a beat stutter automation, and I have a pitch drop automation, and then I have automation for on and off. So I was experimenting with both of the settings to see which ones I like, and then once I had that mapped out, I just turn it on and off. So these settings are live the whole time, but I turned the machine off and on to make that particular effect. And if this was a full track, I can just draw on and on later on as well to create that same effect. So here's what that sounds like all together. And that's pretty much it as far as the effects and automations go, to kind of give you that SP404SX vibe. And it's a little bit, you could be a little bit more dramatic with your effects. I don't like the really loud beat repeats or delays, so I like to use the little ones that do the triplets and rolls on the drums. That's my favorite. And the pitch drop you'll hear a lot in a lot of SP404 users as well. But before I let you guys go to try some of this stuff out, I want to teach you something about the drums. If you look at my groove pool, I experimented with the MPC swing and the SP1200 swing. I ended up going with the SP1200 for the final. But basically, this is pretty straight ahead, like the way I programmed it initially, and then I let the groove template dictate the rest of it. But if you zoom in on it, you'll notice a lot of these elements are not on grid or online. They're just off a little bit. In fact, when it came to the hi-hat, when you select it like this, you can actually probably shift it over a little bit more to kind of get it to swing a little bit more, or to make it a little bit more looser, just by moving the hi-hat away. I noticed in a lot of these guys, especially BSD.U and the Cow dude and all these new cats that are coming up on Bandcamp, they'll have a normal drum pattern for the first two beats. Then on beat 3 and 4, all of a sudden their kick and snare is really lazy or delayed at the end, or shifted over or nudged over. So keep that in mind too. You don't have to keep a static groove like I have. You can manipulate it and try different grooves for different parts of the song. Sort of how like we would do with like a snare breakdown or a hi-hat roll. Instead of doing that, where we come from trap, we're just doing a different groove arrangement for a break in the beat. It's pretty dope. And a cool thing to do, if you're having trouble making a pattern like that, that's real lazy, I'm going to show you an example with my kit. What you would want to do is just do a 1, 2, 3 type programming live, as in your own natural feel. So it's going to be like, so just kick, hat, snare, hat, kick, snare, kick, hat, snare, hat, kick, hat, snare, hat. And you just want to record that. You want to record that in your own rhythm, right? So like this. That sounds crazy. That wasn't me. That was the glitch machine helping me out, making me a little bit more fancier than I am. But so once you have that particular foundation down, what you could do then is then use that as a quantize too. You could just drag it into your groove pool and then use that timing of yourself and apply it to your sample chops to keep everything in the same rhythm, or your natural human rhythm. And that's a better solution if you're going for an organic approach. I personally didn't like it on this particular sample because the guitar, when you let it play through, it has a really sharp timing, because the original is really sharp, like how the guitar is playing. So if you stretch your notes out or you nudge too much, it picks up the other notes I didn't want in my chops. So hopefully that makes sense. And I think that's the smoothest way to do it. This kick, hi-hat, snare, get your own groove out of it. And then you could even double time that, and then make that a groove template and add new hi-hats and new kick patterns to it, and just re-quantize it to your own human groove. So it's just dope. That's one of my favorite things about the groove pool. Reason has it, Fruity Loops has it with the scores feature. You could record something into the piano roll, go to the file menu, and I believe it's export MIDI. Then when you export it as a MIDI file, you want to save it into one of your folders where your quantize settings is, and then you go back into piano roll, Alt Q or whatever the shortcut is for Fruity Loops quantize, and there's going to be a little folder where you can browse for different quantize files. You go to your MIDI loop, which is a FSC or a score file, and you'll be able to apply your groove or your MIDI to other drum programs or other sample or other tracks that have MIDI data, and rock out. So hopefully you guys found this helpful. If you guys have any other questions, comments, or concerns, definitely let us know below. And if you haven't subscribed already, definitely subscribe. This new Tim Kelley kit, Oceans 11, should be coming out soon in time for the weekend. Hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time.